Alright, this is Nima Golbabai on KUCI 88.9 Irvine. Today we're starting about 10 minutes early on my show, Cinéshow, and I'm going to do a whole episode dedicated to Lucasfilm and Disney in general. We're going to be speaking about the state of Lucasfilm and Disney, as well as touching on Indiana Jones 5 and Star Wars in general. I'm sure we'll go all over the place. We'll see how it goes. But, you know what? I've been watching so much Star Wars lately, I just can't stop talking about it. So, let's start out with Indiana Jones 5. As you may have heard, Indiana Jones 5 is going to be coming out in about a month now. It's had pretty low reviews right now, as far as the critics say that it's not very good. However, I don't really take what professional critics say with too much respect these days. However, I do think they're right on for this one, because everything I know about Lucasfilm and Disney's ability to make a modern reboot slash sequel to a beloved series slash character, in addition to the trailer and the cast and some of the details about this movie, tells me that this is going to be a real disaster. It has a gargantuan budget of $300 million. And if you don't know, that a film really needs to make 2 to 3 times its budget to turn a profit, because you got to take into account theater fees and advertising fees, which are not included in the budget. So this movie maybe needs to make close to $1,900,000,000, something like that, either $1,900,000,000 or $900 million to break even, which I frankly am doubting very strongly that that's a possibility. But forget about the money. Let's just talk about what this film is and why it scares me very much. You know, for a long time, Indiana Jones was one of those franchises that have not been destroyed yet by the Disney money hunger. They went through Star Wars and turned the entire fan base against them. They made 3 sequel films that are beloved by almost nobody. They even made a Star Wars film named Solo that actually flopped, which is incredible for a Star Wars film to flop, but they managed to do it by pissing off the fans enough. So now they've destroyed Indiana Jones. They're moving on to another Lucasfilm property here with Indiana Jones 5. From the trailer, it does seem like, first of all, the film just looks ugly. Like, it has none of the good direction that the other films have. -4, which is like alright. But there's no naturalism at all. There's lots of CGI. The de-aging looks crappy. The jokes don't land. There's a lot of, like, political winking at the audience. Like, oh, there's, like, a joke about, capitalism. And I just love getting a lecture about how bad capitalism is from a multi-billion-dollar international corporation. So thank you for that. The cast does not leave much to be desired. Mads Mikkelsen, I think, is a great choice for villain, because he's just a great actor. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who looks like she's going to be perhaps a replacement for Indiana Jones, which is going to go down as well as Rey did, replacing Luke Skywalker. Nobody's going to care or watch that if that's what they're trying to do. But at its fundamental core, this movie does not need to be made. Indiana Jones really didn't need a fourth movie either, but at the very least, the fourth movie did some things right, like the marriage of Indy and Marion from the first film getting back together at the end was a nice end to the series, and it ended on a nice note. Now I hear that Indiana Jones is going to be divorced in this movie, which is so depressing, and it's just the Disney formula. Like, think of Star Wars. In Star Wars, every single character was an absolute abject failure. Luke was a deadbeat Jedi, lost everything, lost all his optimism. Han was or Han, I should say, not Han. Han was a terrible father and a terrible husband. Their relationship is over. Leia was a terrible political leader. Everything she ever fought for ended and died. Every character in that movie was an absolute failure. This looks like we're going into the same thing. Indiana Jones is going to be divorced. His life will be a failure. We're going to get some new, cheaper actress to replace him, probably, in movies that will absolutely never get made because Disney is running out of money, thank God. There's cost cutting at all of their studios. They have so greedily bought up in the past 10 years. And yeah, I'm just waiting for Kathleen Kennedy to be fired if she ever does, but she's just this terrible... She's not an artist. She knows nothing about film, that's for sure. Sorry, just 1 second, someone walked in. Alright, so she knows absolutely nothing about film, and from a pure business perspective, she has wrecked so many of these acquisitions that Bob Iger has seen to fruition, like the acquisition of Lucasfilm, which is, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Those two properties are like some of the biggest franchises, most likable characters, and she destroyed Star Wars and she's about to destroy Indiana Jones as well. So I'm hoping after this movie flops, she is given the boot, but I don't have too much hope for that. I think we should probably just go into talking about the Star Wars sequels, which I wanted to do a whole series, or not series, but episode on this show, talking about why I think they're so detestable. So, I watched every Star Wars sequel film in theaters. The first one, Force Awakens, I was disappointed, but I still left open the possibility that it would be good. Then I saw Last Jedi, and I realized it's not good, and they're just wasting time and not developing the characters, and just putting down the old characters to build up the new, crappier characters. And then when I finally saw Rise of Skywalker, I was like almost ready to just leave the cinema and just... It was such a terrible movie. It was a terrible movie by itself, but as a Star Wars movie, it was garbage. Let's just start from the top with Force Awakens. Basically, this movie, like I said, undoes the entire original trilogy. It makes every single original trilogy character an absolute failure. It doesn't have Luke in it at all. He's just at the end, which is basically is clickbait for the next movie, which, fair play, you gotta make money, but can we do something better with the character? The movie was very visually unremarkable. It was basically a soft reboot of A New Hope without the complex character arcs, without the good acting, without the good dialogue, without really any of the concision of the story. It was just like a cheap reboot that took away so many of the good things and just filled it with unlikable, generic actors and set pieces. Oh, and the worst villain of all time, Kylo Ren, who gets beaten by Rey in the first film, which totally destroys any possibility that you take him seriously. I mean, this guy is supposedly strong, and he loses to a girl with no training whatsoever, and he's also like almost beaten by Finn, who's a stormtrooper. I mean, can you believe it? How are you supposed to take that villain seriously? He's just a joke. Um, what are some other problems? Okay, other problems with Force Awakens is it just fails to really make Rey an interesting character, or anyone else for that matter. She's basically a moral character, and that's it. She's just supposed to be a good person, but she doesn't have really any flaws or any significant challenges she has to overcome, unlike Luke or Anakin from the prequels. I mean, in terms of Luke, he's, starts quite weak in New Hope and is sort of just in running from the fight. And in Empire, he tries to fight, but he's, he loses and he is maimed. And then in the very last movie, he finally gains the strength to just barely win. But, he shows his character in the end by not attacking the Emperor. He has sort of like a physical arc and a moral one as a character. But in this movie, there is nothing interesting at all. Rey is a paragon of virtue. She's just universally good. Everybody loves her. She has no flaws. She beats Kylo in the first fight of the film, of the trilogy. She's incredibly gifted for someone with no training, which is fine as long as you include flaws, because Anakin is also incredibly gifted in the prequels, but let's remind ourselves of the profound moral flaws that character had and the punishments he receives at the end of the trilogy. Total maiming and dismembering of his body, losing of all his friends and family members, sort of total disgrace. No such thing in the sequels. She is just a boss, and that is how it is. The other thing that's really stupid about The Force Awakens is, I guess it's, in retrospect, when you think about the fact that Disney is trying to do a love story between, what's that guy's name? Kylo Ren and Rey. Just think about the start to this love story. So, Rey is apparently attracted to Kylo, we're told later on. And let's just think about why she's attracted to Kylo. This guy's a mass murderer. He has killed billions of people. She has no connection with him whatsoever in terms of charisma or friendship, whatnot. She watches Kylo Ren kill his father in front of her eyes, which they try to pretend like Rey is really affected by the death of Han Solo, but she doesn't even know the guy. It should have been Luke and Leia and Chewbacca witnessing his death, but we got Rey, Finn, and Chewbacca. It was like a total disaster. So just think about it. Would a moral paragon of virtue like Rey be attracted to a guy that is a mass murderer, murders his father right in front of her, and literally has no connection, like, as a friend whatsoever? No. So this movie is basically irrelevant. It does nothing. It sets up a soft reboot of the original trilogy, stripping it of all its context, stakes, good acting, good dialogue. The fight scenes are god-awful. Let's not forget that, and they don't improve. Yeah, it's just attempting to be something it's not. It's taking the general structure of A New Hope and just taking parts out and putting new stuff in. But the new stuff is just not Star Wars. It's something else. Well, let's go on to Last Jedi, which awakened people to the fact that Disney's Star Wars was actually terrible. See, I'm proud that I figured it out from the start. Many people did realize Force Awakens was bad, but some people liked it. But by Last Jedi, the fans were pretty against Disney's Star Wars. The thing about Last Jedi is it's directed better than the rest of the sequels. It's a nicer looking film. J.J. Abrams can't direct to save his life. He's totally a hack, has no talent. Rian Johnson, on the other hand, has way more technical skill than J.J., but he has an absolute disregard for anything anyone else thinks, and he's not interested in making... He's interested in getting a rise out of people, I think, is what I can tell from listening to interviews with him. He's interested in subverting expectations with no build-up and sort of just destroying a character for the audience's reaction, whether it makes sense or not. Last Jedi is a slow movie. It's not great, it's not very good, but it is most famous for sort of shattering and wasting the character of Luke Skywalker, whose only real purpose is to show us how awesome Rey is, because he goes to train her and he's just shocked by how powerful she is. That's the whole point of his character in this movie. It makes Luke just like a total jerk, just this lame character that is a total deadbeat and has nothing really going for him in his life. Even though we saw in the original trilogy him grow as a character, he's back to where he started, basically, if not worse. He's just a miserable old man. It's not a character arc for Disney, it's a character circle. We just have to keep going around and around and around. But yeah, the main purpose was to elevate Rey and to crap on Luke. So Last Jedi really destroyed the Star Wars fan base, so much so that Solo flopped, and this scared Lucasfilm. Then we saw the ending film, Rise of Skywalker. Now, Rise of Skywalker is just a terrible film. It's terrible in every way, and many people believe it to be worse than The Last Jedi, as I do. I think it is the worst. However, people's expectations were lower, so some people don't give it as hard of a time, but many people say it's worse. It has a terrible pace. It is extremely fast-paced, and you can't figure out what's going on. They spend 2 seconds on every planet. There's all these dumb plot devices that revolve around the most contrived sequence of events, like the dagger scene, where they go to the wreck of the Death Star and hold up a dagger and it reveals a secret room, and it's like, oh my god, this is so stupid. Let alone the fact we know the Death Star got vaporized, but they're pretending like it's there. But the real sin of Rise of Skywalker is not how terrible of a movie it is objectively in terms of its screenplay, acting, fight scenes, whatnot. It is just a terrible Star Wars movie because it sets out to completely destroy the Force. It introduces the powers of Force healing and Force resurrection with no build-up at all, basically destroying the meaning of death in the whole series and reducing any stakes whatsoever. You don't care about these characters if they can be revived at any second. They also do these dumb like Force teleportation things and like Force FaceTime where you can talk to anybody across the galaxy just with the Force, like a FaceTime call. Super stupid. But the worst thing about this is, well, they ruin the character of the Emperor. He's just a total buffoon in this with no strategy whatsoever. It's just, they write him in the story to say, please come back. Please, we'll bring the Emperor back if you watch our movie. So they bring him back, they invalidate Darth Vader's redemption and Anakin's fall to the dark side. They make Rey fulfill Anakin's arc instead of Anakin, where he's the chosen one, and he's supposed to be the one that kills the Emperor and destroys the Sith. This is not the case. Now they've retconned it in books that, oh no, it wasn't really the Emperor, it was a clone of the Emperor. However, there is no build up to this in the movie, and it is just brought up out of nowhere. So it's a moot point when Disney goes back and tries to make their own movie make sense by writing stuff. Yeah, that movie, I don't watch many movies like face palming, but I remember how terrible that film was. I could not stop. They just wouldn't leave. They didn't leave Star Wars alone. They were determined to kill it off. And yeah, after this movie, Lucasfilm took a break from making movies, and they're just doing shows now. Shows that are really, some of them are decent, but many of them are not very good. They're not gaining much audience. But now, Lucasfilm announces that they want to bring Rey Palpatine back to do a whole set of movies where basically everything you wanted Luke to do, she will now do, but she will have plot armor and everything will go well for her. So, if you liked Luke Skywalker, you will like Rey, and you will be made to like it, no matter what you say. So, you're going to see Rey rebuild the Jedi Order. She won't be a failure like Luke. And I hope to God those movies flop, and I hope to God Indiana Jones 5 flops, and I hope Kathleen Kennedy is fired. They don't deserve any more money. They're just a terrible, uncreative company that, I don't know, loves to take way smarter people's work and bastardize it beyond comprehension. But you know what? We're going to take about a couple minute break. I'll play a song and I'll get back to you.
The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily represent those of the management of KUCI or the UC Board of Regents. For more information about this show, go to kuci.org.
Alright, that was just a few songs. Um, I thought we could talk about the next big Star Wars show that's coming out, the Ahsoka show, headed up by Dave Filoni. Um, so I'm a little bit torn on this one because I know they're capable of making good shows because I certainly liked the first season of Mandalorian that I was recommended a long time ago. But I'm very nervous, especially when they bring back like established characters and try to do something new with them because I'm worried they're going to destroy them. Furthermore, Dave Filoni recently was quoted as saying that Kathleen Kennedy is his mentor, which is like the worst thing he could possibly say because she should not be making movies. She should just I don't know, she should be like a bartender or something. She's got no place in the film industry. But yeah, this, if you guys don't know, Ahsoka is a character from the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars, and she was Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, and she's sort of a beloved character, and everybody likes her. She's sort of like, in a way, she's a foil to Anakin. She's like a less angry and, how should I say? She gives in less to her emotions than Anakin does, but she nonetheless is sort of definitely his apprentice. Like, she's sort of more prone to not following orders and whatnot, and definitely like a very strong character as well as a character with plenty of flaws and very interesting to watch, just likable. Like, she was definitely like the heart and soul of the show. Everybody really likes her. And I don't really know what they're going to do with this show. I assume it's going to be a crossover between the Star Wars Rebels show and some other thing. Maybe with some Mandalorians in there. I'm not really sure if this show's going to work out, but it could be cool. I mean, at least it's probably going to show us the end of her character, so hopefully they do it right, because she likely is going to die in this show, because it's the end of her time, I think. But yeah, there's plenty of things to be nervous about, and they could do a lot of damage. Also, an actor just recently died from the production, so I don't know if he's going to be recast or what, and I don't know how many seasons they're going to do. But we should move on to another. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. I suppose we can talk about, I guess I would like to talk about the diminishing returns of Dave Filoni's work as a creator for Lucasfilm. If you don't know, Dave Filoni was supposed to be like the guy that saves Lucasfilm from the tyranny of Kathleen Kennedy, but that's been a total... people were just way too overconfident. Basically, if you look at it, Dave Filoni peaked with the Clone Wars, which was his first show, and that was done with George Lucas, and everything he's done after that has been worse and worse and worse. Rebels was a good show, but it had a lot of filler and a lot of stuff that was no point to watch whatsoever. The good thing about Star Wars The Clone Wars is even the filler episodes, like the minor battle episodes, felt significant because they were in a galactic-wide war, and it was like every planet was moving towards a step in the Republic's victory. But in the Rebels show, is like, we're gonna steal a tank, or we're gonna blow up a base, and it just felt so small ball. But then, like, in the third and fourth seasons, they got into their groove. I never watched the last season. I need to. I definitely want to. Um, but yeah, I think if you look at Dave Filoni's career, it's just been downhill since after he did the Clone Wars. I think that's being very honest. I think he can still make good stuff, but it's hard when the structure of the company is so thoughtless, and it's like they don't even like what they're making, I don't think. Alright, but we're probably gonna start wrapping up the end of the show now. It's been a nice 35 minutes or so talking to you about Indiana Jones 5, Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Ray Palpatine. Yeah, all these terrible things that are happening to my favorite movies. But yeah, I would encourage everybody not to go see Indiana Jones and just wait for it to go on a streaming source or something. But I think this movie's in for a rough road. Alright, but I think I'll start closing out now. To my audience, thank you. And instead of goodbye, how about so long? I'm with you to the end of the line.